Flame on! Let's go! I'm all fired up! I'm gonna kill this boss with big damage, baby! I'm the king! Hey man, what you want, man?
You think this big damage?
Don't you know I'm the meta man?
No,
Excuse me?
you're not the meta man. No more fire. You be Frostbolt man now.
Frost, what? Fire is the gold though!
No. Take Veni Ice.
I see veins, you mean?
Sure. Go with talent, gear, rotation, covenants. And more. And you go solve problem now. No more this fire bullshit. You be Frostbolt man. Mob will die. Friend will hate your damage. You get big loot. It's okay.
Frostbolt man, best DPS.
If you like this video and pretty much everything else that we do on the channel, consider going to our Patreon page, link down in the description. There you will find all sorts of tiers with all sorts of access to different types of goodies that you might be interested in. Going into our Patreons will support all of the content that we do in these really kind of trying times of YouTube, and we really are appreciative because all of the Patreon supports goes into increasing the quality, increasing everything that we do here on Marcelian&Online, from the guides, from the tier list, from the on cooldown, from the podcasts, streams and everything. You guys, the Patreon guys, you make it happen. So if you're interested in supporting us a little bit more and you want to have access to stuff like, you know, bloopers, wallpapers and all that, check the link down below and we appreciate it. Now let's go check the goddamn talents, man. On the first row, you will be still lonely this winter, cause what? Just me? Anyway, Lonely Winter will be the best all-around talent. It will increase the damage of your Icelands, Frostbolt, and Flurry at the cost of 1 Water Elemental. It's all about the Frostbolt and Icelands damage with this talent, but in AoE and dungeons we have a few contenders for the throne. Bone Chilling can be an alternative for large consistent AoE pools like what you see in MDI, but usually it's not worth the single target and priority damage sacrifice. But if your group is in need of more AoE, you can consider this option. Moving on, Shimmer is still the king on its talent row and one of the best mobility tools that mages can get. It will allow you to blink while casting and it will have 2 charges. The only downside is that you won't be able to dispel stuns with blink as you could before, but you are a frost mage. You already have 2 ice blocks for that, so let's move on. Next up, you will take Rune of Power. Since the change you got at the beginning of Shadowlands, so that it will drop Rune of Power whenever you use your main damage cooldown, Icy Veins in this case, this pick has become a strong, if not the strongest competitor on this row. Being up almost every minute makes it also very flexible. On the level 35 row, Chain Reaction is still a very good pick in both raids and dungeons when going for more Icelands damage. This talent will provide you with a stacking damage buff on your Icelands whenever you hit frozen targets with it, or if it's buffed by Frozen Touch or after you use your Brain Freeze combo. On the utility row, all options are viable depending on your needs, but the only one that will increase your damage and will synergize with the Icy Propulsion Conduit as long as you can freeze targets with Frozen Nova will be Ice Ward. This talent will give you 2 charges of Frozen Nova, and when you can use it on a non-CC immune mobs, it will shatter your target so that you can crit with Frozen Orb or other spells. On the same row, Frigid Winds will improve your slowing powers by a little more so that you can help your tank kite those mobs easier. Talking about kiting and also sometimes interrupts, Frozen Ring will be the only ring you want for your Fingers of Frost. This will add an extra button to your toolkit that will allow you to summon a big ring of frost to incapacitate a maximum of 10 targets for a short while and slow them afterwards. On the next row, again, all options are viable this patch. When dealing with cleave damage or in dungeons, usually during tyrannical weeks, Splitting Ice will be the go-to. It will buff up your Icelands even more and it will make it split into 2, perfect for those pesky dreadlords fight. For pure single target damage with the start of 9.2, Comet Storm will pull up ahead. The buff it received this patch to not consume Winter's Chill so it can crit has put it further ahead in single target versus the other options. It will also help you a lot with the Icy Propulsion Conduit, as if you use your Comet Storm after a Flurry Shatter will make all of the comets crit and adds to that Icy Veins cooldown reduction. In dungeons, Freezing Rain has started to find its way more and more into your toolkit. With this talent, your Blizzard will be instant and deal extra damage if you plan on pulling large, consistent packs for maximum AoE DPS output. On the last row, Thermal Void is still your pick for every situation. It will increase your Icy Veins duration by 10 seconds, and every time you use Ice Lance on a frozen target, it will extend your Icy Veins even more. It is the best thing you can choose from this row and will allow you to stay in Icy Veins non-stop in AoE. Talking about your needed stats as a DPS, simming will be the best way to get the most out of what you already have. And if you don't know how to do it, we have a simming video just for you, taking you through the process of understanding it from A to Z. If that's too much for you or you cannot be bothered with third-party apps, stick around because we will recommend a rough representation of what you need in order to prepare for your Frost Mage gearing session. Firstly, you will want eye level as high as possible for the extra intellect it will provide. Next, if you have more pieces of the same eye level, you will usually want to get critical strike, and after that you will want to focus on haste for faster cast speeds. Versatility will be good for more damage overall, and mastery for more icicles or frozen orb damage. And if you are playing Freezing Rain with a frozen orb legendary, you will want even more of this. On your weapon, get the Celestial Guidance enchant for most of the situations because of the extra intellect it provides, and you can swap to the Sinful Revelation one in pure single target scenarios. For your chest, go with the Eternal Stats one again for the majority of encounters, with it being a little better in high content as well. When you are facing single target fights, this time the Eternal Insight enchant can pull ahead a little. If you are pushing difficult content, don't forget your Heavy Desolate Armor kit for a little more stamina. Put that Eternal Avoidance enchant on your cloak so you will resist AoE damage a little more. But if you don't fear AoE damage intake, you can use any enchant you want. Don't forget the Eternal Intellect enchant on your bracers. Sorry, no fast Hearthstone for you unfortunately, but since you are a mage, you can teleport wherever you please anyway. Sorry, we are trying to match the minute quota on our video and there's only so much to say about an intellect enchant. Go with the Deadly Jewel Cluster Gems in your sockets for extra critical strike and enchant those rings with 10 of critical strike for the same reason. For a better choice here, you could sim and use the counterparts that simming recommends though. For your alchemical needs, the Flask of Power will increase your power every time you use it, and that is just a fancy way of saying you get more intellect. The potion that will satisfy your needs will be the Potion of Spectral Intellect. Take it in dungeons and in raids for those nice burst phases. And lastly, oil up that weapon good with the Shadow Core oil for a little more damage. It just goes in easier. What? When hunger kicks in, calm it with the Feast of Gluttonous Hedonism for more intellect so your spells will hit harder and stronger. If you don't have access to Feast, just go with the Spinefin, Souffle and Fries for extra crit or swap to the counterpart that sims recommend here as well. Finally, 9.2, you can be that sexy skeletal mage you always wanted to be by pledging your allegiance to the Necrolords. I know I wanted to. Yes, their Covenant ability is Deathborn and it rules, and it will increase your spell power on top of making your Frostbolt cleave 2 extra targets. What, am I too excited about Deathborn? Come on man, it's a skeletal mage! As for the signature ability, it will be Fleshcraft, an additional shield to your toolkit that can provide different buffs when choosing the right soulbind. That right soulbind will be Plague Deviser Marilith. With a 3-potency conduit path, he will mainly be the pick for raids, but you can bring him in dungeons as well. His first straight volatile solvent will empower your Fleshcraft with different buffs, depending on top of what corpse you use Fleshcraft on or what corpses you are passing by if you already have the shield on. It will always grant you mastery when used for consuming your own life essence. Next up, you will receive 3 defensive traits. The first of them, Ooze's Frictionless Coating, will provide you with a small shield when dropping some HP. Next up, Ultimate Form will make you immune to crowd control when using Fleshcraft and a few seconds afterward as well. And the last defensive trait, Undulating Maneuvers, will give you a Brewmaster-like stagger passive as long as you are close to full HP. The last trait in Marilith's arsenal will be Kevin's Oozling. This will summon an Oozling to fight for you and throw shields on your allies when you use your Covenant ability, on top of applying a small extra damage debuff on your target. In Mythic Plus, you can swap to Bonesmith Heimer. With the 3 potency conduits or even the path with only 2 of them, she will bring some good traits to the table. On the first row of her soulbind tree, you will have Forgeborn Reveries. This trait will have you get some extra intellect according to the number of enchants on your gear, and will signal your allies if you die, as they will ask what's wrong with your damage. Because you'll be able to keep fighting for a small while, but you will have a 50% DPS penalty. Next up, if you go for the 2 potency conduits row, you will have Heimer's Arsenal Marrowed Gemstone. This long-ass name trait will have you get a decent amount of critical strike chance after you have crit 10 times on a small cooldown. Afterwards, Carver's Eye will increase your mastery when damaging high HP targets. Lastly, Mnemonic Equipment will put you on the execute phase a little ahead, as it will mimic a portion of your damage dealt to low HP targets. And speaking about Mythic Plus, the Night Phase are still kings in this department. With a Freezing Rain talent and an old legendary that was mainly used on Fire Mages, Disciplinary Command, they will put the D in your damage. The Covenant specific ability will be Shifting Power, and it will reduce the cooldown of all of your abilities, plus dealing some AoE damage. The Phase signature ability for you will be Soul Shape, allowing you to shapeshift into a chosen animal, blink a short distance, and increase your movement speed. Cause you needed more blinks, you mother... Your ideal soulbind will be Dream Weaver. With the 3 potency conduits path, you will have access to a cheat death with Pod Tender. This first trait that will allow you to resurrect if you died in battle, as long as the enemies won't kill your pod for 10 seconds. Going down Dreamweaver's skill tree will be the Field of Blossoms, the haste-giving flowers that will spawn at your feet after you use your Covenant ability. So be sure to stay in it and not blink away like Lego does. Told you, man! The next trait will be Waking Dreams, a small shield received when you drop some HP. And lastly, you will have Dream Delver, a small stacking extra damage debuff that will be applied to your enemies by every damaging spell that you will use. Honorable mentions go to the Venthirs, as they will still be pretty strong early on in the raid until you can equip double legendaries. After that, you will want to consider the other 2 mentions prior. Following down the paths we recommend, you will need some conduits, and we look at potency ones first, Icy Propulsion to be more precise. This will reduce the cooldown of Icy Veins when you crit during its buff, making it so in AoE you can even use Icy Veins more than once. Next up, in single target situations, you will usually want to use the Ice Bite Conduit to increase the damage of your Ice Lance against frozen targets. As your third potency option as a Necromage, you will want the Covenant specific conduit, and that is Gift of the Lich. With this one, your Skeletal Mage will last longer, and you can pair it up with Covenant specific legendaries to stay even more in that form if you're lucky. As a fairy, you will want Unrelenting Cold as your third pick instead of Necro specific ones, and as a Necro you will want to swap Ice Bite to this one in AoE. But why Flame, you might ask? Well, this will increase the damage of your Frozen Orb, and you will want that in AoE more so when using the Frozen Orb legendary. As a non-Necromage and when using the Freezing Winds talent, you will want to swap the Ice Bite Conduit to Shivering Core. This potency will add more damage and slow to your Blizzard spell. For your endurance choices, the one that will synergize pretty well with Shimmer will be the Tempest Barrier. This conduit will make Shimmer throw you a small shield every time you use it. Another decent endurance option for you to use when dealing with dots or sustain AoE damage will be Condensed Anima Sphere. Having this conduit will make you heal when you take damage. If you will need another endurance slot filled, then just go with any of the remaining ones. For your finesse conduits, the Flow of Time will have your back, reducing your Shimmer cooldown. Another good finesse choice in case you need to interrupt a lot will be Grounding Surge, and it will reduce the cooldown of your counterspell if you successfully interrupted a target. One of the best trinkets you can find out there will be the Unbound Changeling from the Mists of Tinner Scythe. It is a very versatile trinket that can give you secondary stats according to what you eat on that day, and it can even proc 3 of them at once if you're lucky, or eat Mexican. What? From Plaguefall, the infinitely divisible ooze is still a good one for you as a frost mage due to how the procs fit into your general playstyle. An alternative can also be Solia's secret technique from the new Upper Tazafish dungeon. The downside of this trinket is that it requires an ally in order for you to use it on. You'll get a bunch of secondary stats and will share a little with the person you use this trinket on. From the raid, one of the best trinkets you can find, if not the best one, will be the first sigil from the prototype Pantheon bosses. It will give you a bunch of verse on a long ass cooldown, but the amount received will make the wait worthwhile. Just be careful not to fuck up your burst. From the same boss, another secondary stat giving trinket will be the Elegy of Eternals. It will increase your highest secondary stat this time, and you will share it with other allies that are in the same covenants as you. Lastly, progressing deeper into the raid will give you another good alternative from Rigolon, one of the last bosses, so the biggest eye level you will find in an item. And I'm talking about Glim Eclipse. This trinket will put a dot on your target and will leave a zone for you to stay in for a bunch of mastery. And talking about the highest eye level you can find still from Rigolon, the weapon Antumbra Shadow of the Cosmos can drop for you. This special dagger will increase your versatility by a lot and your speed as well. On the same big eye level page, you can have the Forbidden Truth offhand from the Jailer if you manage to kill him, of course, and the eye level being the highest in the game on the highest difficulty. From the same boss, you can get lucky and also get the World Killer Iris, a special 3 secondary stat neck piece. If you cannot put your hands on any of these babies, just go for the 278 eye level ones you can choose from the weekly vault. For the legendaries that you can use until you unlock your Unity, go for Freezing Winds as a good all-around option. Not the best in any situation, but still decent if you don't want to swap it a lot. Build it on your helm slot or hands, depending on what tier pieces you decide to equip, and this will make Frozen Orb throw a stack of Fingers of Frost every 2 seconds your way. For single target fights and even cleave as a Necro, you can build a Slick Ice legendary. Craft it in your way slot for an extra socket and you will receive a stacking haste plus damage buff to your Frostbolt during Icy Veins. For AoE, as a Night Fae, you will want the Disciplinary Command legendary on your wrists or ring slot. This legendary will increase your critical strike damage with all of your spells if you cast 1 Fire, 1 Arcane and 1 Frost spell in less than 10 seconds. As a Necrolord, you may want the Cold Front legendary in AoE and Mythic Plus. Build this one on your cloak slot, and after casting 30 Frostbolts or Flurries, a Frozen Orb will spawn on your target. After finishing the new Zereth Mortis campaign, you will get a belt with the Unity effect. This effect will give you your Covenant's legendary effect while letting you equip a second legendary. After getting revered with the Enlightened, you can put the Unity effect on whatever slot you choose if you buy the recipe and learn it. The best slot to build it on will be helmets for the most amount of stats, boots as an alternative, or a ring in case it conflicts with any other legendaries. And talking about other legendaries you can combine Unity with, Freezing Winds in single target and cleave situations with heavy movement as a Necro, or in some AoE fights as a Night Fae. Combine Unity also with Slick Ice for 1 and up to 3 targets as a Necrolord again, which you can see everyone use on all bosses in the raid. For AoE, you will want to combine Unity with Disciplinary Command as a Fae, or with Cold Front as a Necromage, meaning you will simply add the Unity legendary to whatever you were using prior to obtaining it. Your tier set will be one of the wins this patch. What? You didn't hear tier pieces finally came back? Well, welcome to Shadowlands! The parts that don't suck at least. After you get it, your 2 set bonus will give you 1 free talent on a shorter cooldown, Comet Storm that is, and with the 4 set bonus, all your Comet Storms will increase your damage done to your targets by a small amount. Pretty cool. The rotation is not affected that much by your legendaries or tier sets. The only thing you need to take into consideration is your last row talents and your procs. The opener for single target as a Necrolord will have you pre-cast Frostbolt, enter in Deathborn form, activate Icy Veins, cast Frozen Orb, continue with the priority rotation. And speaking of which, your single target priority will have you use Deathborn on cooldown. Rune of Power if Icy Veins has more than 15 seconds cooldown or after the one from Icy Veins finishes. Use Icy Veins on cooldown. Cast Flurry with Brain Freeze procs, and if there is no Winter's Chill debuff, Frozen Orb on cooldown, Ice Lance with Winter's Chill debuff on the target, Comet Storm if talented with Winter's Chill debuff again, Ice Lance with Fingers of Frost procs, Frostbolt as a filler. Your multi-target opener as a Night Fae will have you pre-cast the Blizzard, activate Icy Veins, cast Frozen Orb, Blizzard next if off cooldown, and again continue with the priority. And that priority as a Night Fae will be with Icy Veins on top on cooldown. Rune of Power if Icy Veins has more than 15 seconds cooldown or after the one that Icy Veins just gave you. Frozen Orb on cooldown, Blizzard on cooldown, Flurry with Brain Freeze procs and no Winter's Chill debuff on the target, Ice Lance with Fingers of Frost or Winter's Chill debuff on the target, Shifting Power on cooldown, and if you are using Glacial Fragments and Blizzard is up, spam Ice Lance in AoE. Arcane Explosion if everything else is on cooldown, and Frostbolt as a filler. This covers the basics and most important things that you need to know about starting your journey as a Frost Mage, but of course you can go deeper and learn more advanced tricks and tips about your Frost Mage baby by checking the Alter Time Discord, where all the big Frost Brain mages are, and they can help you with information that might be a little bit more advanced for this video. One such mage is OK Mage, and she's more than okay. She helped us understand Frost Mage, correct a bunch of our mistakes, and generally gave us the okay that the information is good for you. Did I say that enough? Is it too much? You can check her in the Discord. She also has a YouTube and a stream where you can see high-level Frost Mage in action. Thank you, OK Mage, you rock! And the Patreons also rock for supporting our channel. Thank you very much, guys. You make a lot of this possible, and we are very, very, very grateful for it. And if you want to support us a little bit more and you want to see more of this content done in the future, check the Patreon link down below. We really, really appreciate all the support. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.